Hello and welcome friends. Recently I took a course learning how to learn. The course is delivered by Dr. Barbara Hokley and Dr. Terence Sejnowski. It is teaching us about learning how to learn. As I went through the course, I found that content to be very helpful, especially for you. And hence, I thought of preparing some presentation which will be helpful for you all in long run. The entire content of this particular presentation I have divided into 4 parts, and it will be delivered through the videos I am uploading now. This first part is introducing you about learning, its types, as well as in view of learning, our brain is wonderful thing. We must know exactly what are the various parts and that are related with our learning. We think, but even that particular thinking has got certain categories. In view of learning, we will be discussing about focused and diffuse modes of the thinking. We will be also thinking about chunks, chunking, and even some memorization techniques. I am Professor Sunavane from Walchand College of Engineering, Sangli, Maharashtra, India. I wish you all the best. This course is all about learning. We keep on learning every moment, isn't it? But if asked, what is the definition of the learning, it will be highly difficult to answer. See, learning is the process of acquiring new understanding, knowledge, behavior, skills, values, and preferences. It is often defined as relatively lasting change in behavior that is the result of experience. Researchers categorize this learning operation in 3 different headings. The first one is classical conditioning. Second one is operant conditioning. And third one is observational learning. In the first picture, what you see is dog is intently looking towards ringing bell, and that ringing of the bell is also ringing in its brain that it's lunchtime. Similarly, here in operant conditioning, the way you see, there is a lady who is instructing that baby boy that if you happen to do that good thing, you will be rewarded with something. Don't do that and definitely you will be punished. So, under these circumstances, there are certain reinforcements and punishments which are cause of the learning. In third picture, what you see is mama and her child who are trying to get their facials made up by using some tools simultaneously. So here, this is kind of the observational learning. It occurs by observing the actions and consequences of other people's behavior. All this particular learning is supposed to be taking place through our brain. Hence, let's get acquainted with the brain. Dr. Terry has given very nice elaborative lecture in the course. I am trying to sum up a few of the things out of my learnings. First thing, that the brain weighs just 3 pounds, but it consumes 10 times more energy by weight than the rest of the body. Brain is most complex device in the known universe. All our thoughts, our hopes, our fears are in the neurons of the brain. Various feelings that we enjoy could be seeing, hearing, reaching, running, and similar are much more complex problems than we think, the way beyond the capability of world's fastest digital computers. There are few sites in the brain that are highly active in the resting state, whereas some sites are highly active when the subject interacts with the world. There are billion synapses. It is nothing but single connections between the neurons where memories are stored. The brain connectivity is dynamic and remains so even after it matures. The way we saw here that a few of the brain sites are highly active during the resting state, whereas some sites are highly active during our interaction with the world. With the same continuation, the sleep is very important component. It knits up the loose threads of the experiences and concerns during the day and weaves them into the tapestry of our life story. Our thinking could be considered in two modes. The one is focused and another one is diffused. Let's try to understand what each mode is. The focused mode is related with the focusing of our attention. When we are trying to learn something new, we must focus intently on that in order to turn on some parts of the brain and get the learning process started. Whereas the diffuse mode is related with relaxed state. Diffuse mode is when our mind is relaxed and free. We are thinking about nothing in particular. We are gently using other parts of the brain that are mostly different from the parts we used when we were focusing. The diffuse mode helps us to make imaginative connections between the ideas. Creativity often seems to pop out of using this particular diffuse mode. Either focus mode or diffuse mode can only be active at a time. So, our brain can only be in just one mode at a time. In order to have the better learning, our brain has to go back and forth between the focus and diffuse modes in order to learn effectively. Dr. Barbara Oakley has used the analogy of pinball. So here you must be knowing that pinball tables are kind of like our brain. Their bumpers can be closer or farther apart depending on the table. So here, as you see, in the focused mode, as we start thinking, ball leaves a trail as it travels. See how close together that rubber bumpers are. The ball moves in the tight pattern. Your thoughts can't go very far. The ball is following fuzzy pattern that has already been led because you have had that thought before. Whereas, as we consider in this particular diagram, the table bumpers are much farther apart. Here, our thought ball is moving through that particular balls placed quite apart. So, in diffuse mode, it allows us suddenly to gain new insight on the problem we are struggling with and is associated with big picture perspectives. Whereas the focus mode involves direct approach for problem solving using rational, sequential, analytical approaches. Chunking. Chunks is nothing but compact packages of the information that our mind can easily access. APA Dictionary of the Psychology defines chunking as the process by which the mind divides large pieces of the information into smaller units that are easier to retain in short-term memory. One item, that is one chunk, in a memory can stand for multiple other items. Dr. Barbara has elaborated this particular concept by making use of octopus of attention. According to her, the octopus of the attention that slips its tentacles through the 4 slots of working memory when necessary to help you make connection to information that you might have in various parts of your brain. Here, let's try to understand this particular chunking process through step 1 to step 3. Say step 1, simply to focus your undivided attention on the information you want to chunk. The octopus of tentacles, so to speak, can't reach very well if some of them are off on other thoughts, using up some of the limited slots in your working memory. Step 2 tells us about understanding the basic idea that we are trying to chunk. Understanding is like a super glue that helps to hold the underlying memory traces together. The third step to chunking is giving some kind of context. So you can see now just how but also when to use this chunk. Context means going beyond the initial problem and seeing more broadly, repeating and practicing with both related and unrelated problems so that you can see not only when to use the chunk, but when not to use it. So here, the process of the chunking can be further elaborated by making use of these 3 steps, which are occurring simultaneously. There is a bottom-up approach. So here we practice, we repeat, and that helps us to build and strengthen each chunk so that whenever there is a requirement, it would be easily accessed. Whereas the big picture process allows us to see what we are learning and where to fix it. as both this particular top-down approach and bottom-up approach, here comes the context. So the context is where bottom-up and top-down learning meets. The chunking is very much essential operation as far as the learning is concerned. Let's speak about library of chunks. So in previous slide, we learned about chunk and chunking. So chunk is a small piece of the information. It could be having long chunks related with many similar chunks. So say if you are learning some science topic and you have chunked some information, now that particular chunk could be very much useful if you are learning some other, say, science-like subject. So to say, here we have to develop many chunks, and that particular chunks would be developed and written in our mental library. Here, as you have the bigger mental library of such chunks, it will be very easy for us to solve the complex problems and figure out these particular solutions. It is necessary to use certain holistic intuition approach for this particular problem solving. As you start working, initially that particular chunk would be having some faint pattern. But as you keep on practicing, it would be just reinforcing its pattern, and it will be further strengthening. So to say, here it will be attaining dark color. This particular small chunk of information can also be memorized by making use of creative memory tricks. So these tricks allow us to expand our working memory with easy access to long-term memory. A few of the techniques, let's just get introduced with. Say, we can make use of acronyms. So, just one example, Great Lakes of North America. You could have taken the first letter of each lake, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior, and spelled the word Holmes. So here this word Holmes is acronym in order to memorize the Great Lakes of North America. Sometimes we can make use of some funny phrase out of certain, say, the first letters, the way we created Holmes here. So very similar to this particular, say, making use of first letter here, we can construct a phrase called as acrostics, such as hovering on my extreme surfboard. So here, this particular hovering on my extreme surfboard is related with water, and that's why here it can be easily connected with this particular, say, Great Lakes. We can make use of associated concepts. Say, for example, you want to shop certain flour, apples, nuts, coffee, and yogurt. It could be difficult to keep each of these particular items in mind. As I make use of first letter here, say F for flour, A for apple, N for nuts, C for coffee, U for yogurt. Here the word I create is fancy. So that the least fancy can be easily remembered, and FANCY can be connected with each of the items, and hence that memory or that particular list can be easily memorized. Sometimes we can associate some significant numbers in order to learn certain numbers. Say for example, my friend's birthday stands on 1st September 1970. So I wish to memorize that. I want to keep that in my memory. So if I say my birth year is 1970, so here 1-9-70 can be connected with my friend's birthday. In addition, we can make use of memory palace technique, which is particularly powerful to group the things. It involves calling to mind a familiar place like the layout of our house and using it as visual notepad where we can deposit the concept images that you want to remember. Just for example, as I move from my veranda to my bedroom, I come across my living room, my kitchen, and say then I enter to my bed. Now here if I wish to maintain the say sequential movement of certain thing, I can attach that with veranda followed by the one which is in the living room, then the placed in kitchen room and subsequently in bedroom. As such, these particular say imaginary or funny constructed sequential order can help us to memorize a huge list of even 50 items.
So hello friends, I hope the content that I have tried to present here found to be interesting to you all, and you have created enough interest to have further depth related with this particular topic. My sincere request to you all to give me your constructive suggestions to improvise this presentation. As well, I would request you to proceed with the part 2 of this presentation, which is related essentially with some basic terminology of learning, procrastination and memory. I wish you very happy learning. Thank you.